Welcome to the Lion Show. I really appreciate everybody tuning in. Today we have a very special guest. Mr. Thomas Young is here. He's a financial coach, an author. He's got a nonprofit, and just a very, very money smart guy. And I've just been watching his content for a while. So why don't you introduce yourself, Thomas, and just tell everybody kind of who you are and what you're about.
Well, my name's Thomas W. Young, and I do that. There's a lot of you. Google it. There's a lot of us. I've been around the financial service business for soon to be 45 years. I just find myself at a point in life where I have a goal in life, a mission to touch 1 million lives. I have information and education about finances that is unlike most everything that's going on in the typical financial world. I have all these initials after my name, so I've taken all the courses, so I know what they teach everywhere. And I spend most of my time disproving what the typical financial world tells people about money, because it's not in your best interest, it's in their best interest. And they approach rules based on suitability. There's a lot of things that would be suitable for you that they could sell you, but it doesn't mean it's fiduciarily right. I'm a licensed fiduciary with a Series 66 license from the SEC. And so I approach everything I do as, what would I do? What is the best thing for my clients in going forward? And everything that I talk about, if you follow me on my Facebook page, it's the Family Money Farm Group. I do podcasts every day, and we take it apart in little pieces and provide verifiable, mathematically correct information about the decisions you make. Example, is a 15-year or 30-year mortgage better? You know, that's a discussion that everybody has in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Now, I can mathematically show you and prove to you which is best for you and how to use it to make money.
Love it, man. So as a financial coach, what do you think is the number one problem or people are struggling with that you help? Like, what's the thing you help the most often, you think?
The people I help most.
Like, what's their problem? What do you think is the biggest problem that people are having with money?
The biggest problem that people have is more often than not, they don't truly understand how money works. They think they do based on the rules that we have all learned. Example, the 4 rules of the financial world. If you were sitting at a desk and the financial world is across the desk from you, they're sitting there and they're thinking, I want all of your money. I want more ongoing. I want to keep it forever. And I want to give back as little as possible.
Yeah.
That maximizes their benefits. If it's a banking system, they use fractional banking to multiply your money times 7 on average. So you put $1 in the banks, they turn it into $7 through the Federal Reserve System, through the fractional banking. So now I look at that and I say, well, I want to turn that table around. So what are my rules on my side of the table? And I have 4 distinct rules. Number 1, you have to save 20% of your gross annual income. Now, how does that equate to their first rule? I want all your money. Well, that's the maximum amount of money that you could probably keep in the beginning, because the other 80% is going to pay for food, shelter, clothing, transportation. You need all that stuff. You need to pay to sleep. You know, there are a few people around the world that don't pay to sleep because they live in the gutter, but most of us pay to sleep somewhere.
Right.
Pay for transportation to and from our work and that type of thing. So that 20% is important. And the average savings rate in America up until the pandemic was average around 3%.
Yes, that.
When you go to work, the number one savings place they project to you is 401k. Save all you can in your 401k.
Right.
Well, what does that mean? Now let's step back. You're 35. I don't know, Robert, what your age is. You're what, 35?
I'm 30 years old, actually.
30-year-old. Okay, so here you are. You got a job, and your employer is saying put all you can into your 401k. So you're taking money out of your lifestyle and you're throwing it as far as you can into the future with little or no access to it without penalties, taxes, etc. They tell you, oh, you're just deferring the tax. Well, I prefer to call it you postponed the tax.
Right.
But you didn't only postpone the tax, you postponed the calculation of the tax.
Yeah.
So here's a question.
The opportunity.
$27 trillion in debt and $155 trillion in unfunded liability. Robert, do you think taxes in the future are going to be higher, same, or lower than they are today?
They get higher every year.
Okay. Does it make sense then to take serious amounts of money and take it out of your lifestyle? It's the cause of debt disease.
Right.
Because if you're raising a family and you're locking this money away, now you have, where's your emergency money? Where's your local savings? So
Right.
it forces you to go to the bank and become a debtor. Now you start borrowing money and you get into that and stuff always happens and it's almost impossible to get out. I teach people how to snowball their way out of debt.
Nice.
If that makes sense to you, if you know what snowballing is, it's just a method that I can tell people, look, if I could get you out of debt in 9 years or less, including your mortgage without spending $1 more than you're spending now, would that interest you?
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
So the 401k is the last thing you do. It's what you do when you don't have any other need or places to save or put money.
Wow.
Because it meets the criteria of the financial world, Robert.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't it maximize their money? They get to keep it forever. And when you retire, are you going to take it out in big lump sums or dribs and drabs?
Right.
So it perfectly meets their criteria for maximizing their financial well-being.
Well, I love that, flipping the table.
You need to flip the table and learn how to apply those same 4 rules in your life. So number 1 is save 20%. Rule number 2 is you accumulate 50% of your annual income in accessible cash. Now, when I say accessible cash, no penalties. You don't have to apply for it. It's accessible.
Mm-hmm.
What would you need any consumer debt if you had 50% of your annual income in accessible cash?
Right. No.
No. So no credit card balances. So that's rule number 3 is no consumer debt, unless you own it.
Right.
And that is
Assets.
the concept of being your own banker. In other words, I have lots of debt and I write checks out every month. But isn't it funny? I make all the checks payable to my wife and me. I own the debt.
Right.
And I meet people and they say, well, I don't have any debt, Tom. And I say, well, you finance everything you buy.
Yeah.
You either pay somebody else interest to use their money, true?
Mm-hmm.
Or you give up the earnings on your money to pay cash for something.
Right.
So you lose the opportunity value on your own money, because I have never met anybody that pays themselves back at interest. Now, I want to come to an end here. Rule number 4 is the CFO project. And that is where you take on the full role and responsibility in your family business, because we all have a family business that deals with our finances. You trade time for money in some way, and you bring that money into your world, and you must learn how to manage the money. And so that's where the CFO project comes into play, where you start managing like a CFO.
How do you do that?
That means creating wealth multi-generationally with what I would call, there's a book written called The Rockefeller Method. And you know, you go back 100 years ago and you had the Vanderbilts and the Mellons and the Rockefellers and all of these mega rich people 100 years ago. And isn't it funny that all of those big families of wealth pretty much have gone by the wayside except the Rockefellers?
Right.
They're worth about $500 billion today, $500 billion, the Rockefeller Foundation. Now, how did they do that? Well, they hung on to the money.
Right.
And they insured all the family participants to their economic human life value. So when your parents die, Robert, are you expecting a big inheritance when they die?
I wish.
Well, that's true. But then why isn't that happening? Because if I could show you how to do that with no additional out-of-pocket cost, by simply changing the way that you approach managing your own money, by creating your own banking system and using it like corporations and banks do. Life insurance let me say this, with a dividend paying mutual life insurance company. That is key, because there's
Dividend paying?
850 or so life insurance companies out there, and less than 1% of all those companies meet this criteria. All of them are stockholder owned. And maybe you own mutual funds or something and you own stock in companies. Well, you're a stockholder. So all of the life insurance companies, 99 point something percent of them are all corporate owned, stockholder owned companies. So they're operated for a profit for their stockholders.
Wow.
Now, life insurance companies are some of the most successful, profitable companies in the entire financial marketplace. If you affiliate with one, I would want to be an owner. So a dividend paying mutual life insurance company, when you own a whole life policy with those companies, you are now an owner of the company.
Wow.
Those policies actually have a positive tax-free rate of return. Now, how do I prove that? Well, go back to 2017, go on the internet and Google BOLI, bank-owned life insurance.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting that the banks in 2017 purchased more of this kind of life insurance than all the consumers in America?
I know something.
Interesting. The world is typical financial telling you, you don't want to own this stuff. You don't want to buy whole life insurance. You don't want this stuff, but yet they buy more of it than all the consumers in America buy.
Huh.
How about COLI, C-O-L-I, corporate owned life insurance?
Mm-hmm.
They do exactly the same thing. They store their capital in life insurance policies because even the Federal Reserve tells their member banks that this place to store money has the least risk of default. Well, I mean, those are facts. You can find it, Google it, go online. It's all there.
Mm-hmm.
But why aren't the consumers being taught this? I have several dozen people that are MBAs that are my clients. I did not go to college.
Yeah.
My education is in all that college education with all those initials in what I do.
Yeah.
But I have MBAs that are clients that say to me, Tom, why didn't anybody tell me about this in college?
Yeah, I've never heard this before. It's pretty
Well, the
enlightening.
financial world doesn't want you to know this. Remember, we've turned the table around now.
Yeah.
And I'm looking on my side. There was a story 25, 30 years back in the 80s. Headline in the Wall Street Journal, and I have boxes. I'm a collector of newspaper articles and magazine articles. I have banker boxes full of them. This was a headline in the Wall Street Journal back in the mid-1980s. And here was a major company. I won't say the name of the company, but this major company, if you heard the name, you would know. It's in the Fortune 500. And they make commercial equipment and farm equipment, and that's all I'll say. But the headline said, look, this retiree died, who was a lifelong employee of this company. He died at 76 years old. The company received a death benefit of $10,000, and his widow got nothing. Now, here, that was the headline. What would your reaction to that be, Robert?
Yeah, I don't know. That sucks.
Not a good company, right?
Yeah.
What they didn't tell you was back in the 70s and 80s, if you had a job with a big company,
Yeah.
when you retired, guess what? They continued your health insurance until you died. You're not old enough to remember those days, but those were corporate benefits and perks.
Huh.
And companies would buy small insurance policies on every employee.
Yeah.
So that when they died, that death benefit replenished the pool of funds so that they could continue paying health insurance premiums for all of the retirees.
Wow.
Now, the media didn't tell you that side of the story, but that changed your whole premise, your reaction now, you know?
Yeah.
It's like you're on a train, you know, you're on the subway in New York. This guy gets on the train, they're with you, and he's got 3 little boys. And man, they're just nonstop annoying. They're screaming and crying and hollering, and you just get to the point you can't stand anymore. And you get in this guy's face, and he looks at you and he says, I am so sorry. We just come from the funeral home. They just lost their mother.
Right. The paradigm shifts.
The paradigm.
Yeah.
And we need to change our paradigm.
Right.
in the way we do this. And that's really what I'm all about.
I love it, man. So tell me a little bit about your book.
So you can see it in the mirror. There's my book.
It disappears.
Okay, there it is. There it is. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's in Barnes and Noble's, Amazon. The title of the book is The Family Money Farm, the
Family Money Farm
Project. And,
cool.
and it has all of this stuff in it that I'm talking about with proof. I mean, everything I've said here, Robert, I'm suable. I mean, the things I'm saying, I'm a professional, and I have unequivocal, absolute mathematical proof of everything that I say.
I love it.
I give you an opinion, I'll tell you this is my opinion when I say it. Other than that, I'll take any challenge. I have a radio show I've had for 20 years on a little AM station called WBVP, WMBA, and I'll be on there next Tuesday morning at 9:10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have a 1-hour radio show every month, and they're on Facebook, so you can find it live. And it'll be on my Facebook page live the same time in that morning. And I've been on there since back in the 80s.
Wow.
I've been on this radio.
So I'm
what we talk about.
Yeah. So I'm an entrepreneur, and a lot of the listeners are entrepreneurs. So my money is very good, or it's nothing.
You need a plan that gives you flexibility, and it also gives you full access to your money.
Right. So
without the government involvement. No government involvement whatsoever.
Yeah.
That's what I can show you how to do. That's what I do for people.
That's awesome. I mostly invest in my business and then invest in stocks. But stocks, I think I kind of want to find a new way and a new safer thing to do with money. And you're thinking cash. Is that what you think?
Well, again, what I was talking about earlier, whether you invest in real estate, which I think is the biggest opportunity. If you've read a lot of Kiyosaki stuff, I've met Robert Kiyosaki, and I've known him since the beginning of his career when his book took off back in the 80s. Some Amway diamond bought his book. They were on a shelf in a car wash.
Yeah.
And I was at an annual national convention in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Robert Kiyosaki was one of the speakers, and this was the beginning of his career.
Awesome.
And so I have read all of his books and ongoing, but he is right on.
Yeah.
Everything you do should be for the result of creating passive residual income.
Right. Assets.
So as you go forward to retirement, if you look at typical retirement planning and the typical advice, they want you to pile up your money and you want to have this big pile of money. You're 30 years old, so typically your retirement date would be 35 to 40 years from now. Tell me how much money you need a month 40 years from now, or 35 years from now, or 30 years from now. There's no conscious way. So the financial planner of today, the typical guy says, well, we need a number, so we're going to take inflation, take your income today, take 3%, which is the historical average of inflation, if you believe the government after all their manipulation, and we're going to project your income. So this tells me how much income you're going to. Now, wait a minute. Did they ask you if your income today is your ideal dream income?
Right.
They didn't ask you that. They just created a bunch of assumptions. And, when you start to assume, and I guess we're on live and I won't explain that, but you understand ASSUME, you assume. And when you start assuming all that stuff, you really don't have a correct answer. And I don't care if you're 60 years old and you're going to retire in 3 years, the information, your thinking process, I call it the thinking muscle. We have to exercise the thinking muscle as much as we do physical muscles.
Right. It's good exercise.
And that's part of my whole person approach to financial and personal success. It all relates together in doing that. So in the typical approach and saying, okay, here's X number of dollars I need when I get there, all of the assumptions are going to be wrong. So the only answer of truth for retirement planning is I want to have the most money I could have whenever that date occurs. I don't know what it is, whether it's 60, 65, 75, or whatever, I want to have the most I can have when I get there. Now, how do I do that? Let's come back to today. And we have to develop a plan of strategies that teach me how to maximize everything I'm doing today.
Right.
And what makes me very unique is I don't believe in chasing rates of return. I believe in avoiding losses. If I can avoid losses and avoid debt, I will end up with more money than you will.
Yeah.
That's simple. I have my foundation of I have a program I teach. It's called Chump Change. And in it, it teaches the value of money. I'm talking to an 8th grader, 10th, 12th, college person. I want them to understand the meaning behind money, not just money. Because it isn't the money you make in life, it's what you do with the money. It isn't what you do for a living, it's the person you become. That's where the significance is. Living a life of significance.
Yeah.
And in there, I do an example. So you're 25 years old, you graduated college, and dad co-signs. You got your first job, you're making $30,000, $35,000 a year. You need a car. You need to pay for transportation. Mm-hmm. So dad takes you down to the dealership, you buy a $25,000 car, which is not an expensive car today. And you finance it for 5 years, and the payment's $500 and some dollars a month. And at the end of 5 years, 60 months, you pay $25,000 for the car, but you paid $5,400 in interest to the bank at 8% interest. That $5,400, were it invested at 8% interest over your working lifetime, it would be worth $273,000.
Yeah, you always.
What did your car cost you?
Yeah.
25,000 plus another 270,000.
Yeah.
That was an expensive car.
Right.
Now you buy another car, and you do this every 5 years throughout your working lifetime because it's what the typical financial world tells you to do.
Yeah.
You lose $770,000 of wealth potential over that period of time.
Yeah, I think.
If you have a credit card, average credit card balance in America is $9,000 at 18% interest. That's the average. The average family in America spends 34 cents out of every dollar in debt cost.
Wow.
34 cents out of every dollar in debt cost. So that credit card, and you maintain that balance for 40 years, you're going to spend 70-some thousand in interest, but if it were invested at 10% interest, it would be worth another $778,000. So my planning, I absolutely can prove without a doubt that the absolute minimum that the average family should end up with at retirement is $1.5 million. That's a minimum.
Yeah.
They should have.
I think Albert Einstein said the best invention ever made by man was compound interest.
It was whether he said that or not, I don't know. But if you're saving, I'll give you another example. You have $100,000 and you put it in a bank CD at 6% interest, and 35 years later, you have $573,000, 574.
Yeah.
Along the way, you pay taxes on the money. So you have the tax plus the lost opportunity cost, the value, the interest you lost on the taxes you paid. And inflation in 35 years renders a dollar worth only 33 cents. So it actually costs you a little more than 780 grand to end up with $574,000.
Yeah, no.
All this is, Robert, is proof that the typical people out there, why is it that the very, very few people ever really get ahead in life? And if you're a successful entrepreneur, you're in the top 1 or 2% of society.
I still bitch about it.
Why aren't more people getting ahead?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a mindset type of deal. I don't know.
Well, that really comes back. That's the basis of everything, because the biggest problem that I find is people, they don't have discipline. They don't have stick-to-itiveness. And why is that? Well, all the way back to the very basics of anything. You have to believe in a dream. If you don't have a positive vision for your future, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
So it all starts with the thinking muscle and working on your attitudes and having self-talks. I'll bet you have a self-talk, Robert. I'll bet you have talk. You talk to yourself and you convince yourself that things are going to be successful.
Sometimes I need sometimes I need a professional opinion, so I talk to myself.
I understand that. Well, see, Think and Grow Rich was the book. 30 years ago, I was at the bottom of the pit. I had gone through a lawsuit that lasted 3.5 years, and I had reached a point where I thought my professional life, my financial life was over.
Yeah.
It was an $800,000 lawsuit.
Damn.
3.5 years into it, finally the deposition, and I went to the deposition and I was exonerated. They went after my CPA, which is where the original client referred to me came from. So it was all being driven by the CPA. They released me from the lawsuit, but I was on the edge of bankruptcy after 3.5 years of not knowing.
Yeah.
I had buried myself. I didn't write any business. I didn't make any income. So I borrowed every penny to the max.
Wow.
And I met a guy named Jody Victor. I went to a meeting where an Amway meeting. I joined the Amway business because that was, an opportunity, and I thought my professional life was over.
Yeah.
I met this guy named Jody, and I went to this meeting, and I'm sitting in a room, 150 people, and it was his father's house. The parking lot's parked 100 cars in his backyard. I mean,
wow.
I don't know if you have any concept of an Amway diamond.
Wow.
These people are the best coaches in the world. My success today came from meeting this guy named Jody Victor in Akron, Ohio. He got up to speak. Now, nobody at that time, nobody around me knew the black that I was sitting in, the hole that I was sitting in, and what I thought was going to happen. He got up on stage and he started to talk to the group. And 2 or 3 minutes into his talk, he looked me in the eye. He stepped down and he picked me up and he says, "Sometimes people just need a hug." And he whispered in my ear, "I believe in you."
All you need sometimes.
I mean, I bawled like a baby. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. So
yeah,
it was a very emotional moment. I got going home. I didn't want the wealth that this guy had. I just set out on a mission in life to become the kind of man that he was, that could touch somebody's life and change their direction. That is what I'm all about, Robert.
Wow.
I make a great living at what I do. I help people implement using insurance and different things. That's all there. But my mission is to reach inside somebody's chest and take their heart and change it and make them feel like they've never felt before in their entire life. That's what I do for a living.
I love it.
And what I have learned in the last 30 years, coming from the very edge of bankruptcy, owing several $100,000 to freedom, but I paid every dime back. I worked my way out of that hole. Do you think I learned anything in the last 29 years since that happened? That's
I hope so.
So that's what my coaching is all about. But
awesome.
It's really multidimensional, and it's personal and business and all of the above. I want to change your life for a living.
Wow. Now let's talk a little bit more about your coaching, because I'm very interested in financial coaching, just personally.
Well, the coaching is I start out, I get people to fill out a questionnaire. And if they're in the office or we do Zoom, this year has been amazing. I started the journey online in July of 2019. I went on a coaching journey. I paid a lot of money to go with meet a guy named Ted McGrath. I don't know if you've heard of Ted McGrath.
Yeah.
His program is Message to Millions. And I went 3.5 days to LA, and I was sort of struggling a little bit at that time because the industry that I'm in was changing, and I really wanted to get the message out to bigger amounts of people. He introduced me to the internet and the social media stuff. And so it's been a journey. So this year, I have been able to maintain my income with the pandemic and everything, but I have clients now in 33 states.
Awesome.
It's been unbelievable. And then I'm hooked up with Russell Brunson of ClickFunnels.
Yeah.
So you've heard of Russell Brunson.
Yes.
And I am now in a personal coaching program with Russell Brunson right now.
Oh, jealous.
That's what's teaching me to do this summit that I'm going to have in the third week of February.
Nice.
And we're going to touch 1 million lives is
Beautiful.
what we're going to do.
What,
This information is critical for everybody to know. Now,
What-
the coaching, how does it start? Well, you can go to CFO-project.com. CFO, Chief Financial Officer, -project.com. And you put your name and email address in, and you know what you'll get? You'll get a PDF, you'll get a link, a free download of my book, cover to cover, for free. There it is.
Nice.
When you go there, it's going to send you to another page. It's going to open up a page, and there are 4 more books. So now it becomes the decision to invest in yourself.
Right.
Another book, I wrote this book in 2006. It is now republished, so this is version 2. And it's called Life Insurance, Will It Pay When I Die? What led to that book, I wrote an article. And the title of the article was Why Widows Die Destitute Because of the Loss of Their Husband's Life Insurance. I published that article online, and it was published around the world. And it was just, it blew me away.
Yeah.
And so that led to the book. And all it really was, it led to this product that everybody is being told to buy called Universal Life Insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Universal life insurance is nothing more than expensive term life insurance. Because
Yeah.
if you live the life expectancy, the product will blow up before you get there. So they end up with all your money, and you get nothing in the end.
That's awesome. What's the focus of the summit? Financial freedom, or what is it?
It is the whole person. So it's financial freedom,
Mhm.
but it's going to include physical, mental, spiritual, meditation. I mean, we have to get the further you go up the ladder of financial success or success in life. Take the word financial away, because success has many different definitions for people.
Yeah.
And some, success is being able to live my life the way I want to live my life. I get up and do what I want to do and have the freedom to do that every day. That's success. But it takes the whole person approach. So if you're not healthy physically, when you get to some point in time, how much enjoyment are you going to get out of what you created?
Not much. You gotta get healthy.
You're going to run out of gas, and somebody else is going to enjoy your success. Now, if you're family, that's okay too. But I believe I want to help people find their why. There was a book by Simon Sinek, Start With Your Why.
Yeah.
You read, I'm sure you read that book.
Yeah, I have. Love that.
My first professional talk 7 years ago, I gave to a company called Flexible Plans, Inc. They're located in Toledo, or Detroit, and they're a brokerage firm. So I was the keynote speaker, and my talk, what I learned from Jody, he always taught me that the greatest talks ever given are from a book. So when I give professional talks, it's always from ideas in a book. And I gave this talk, Start With Your Why. And when I read the book and I prepared for the talk, it changed me. And it was the beginning of searching for your why. There are 2 dates in life that are important. The day you were born, we celebrate every year our birthday, right?
Yep.
What else? The day you figured out why you were born.
I love it.
How many people really know that? Because that's where real joy and happiness comes in life. When you figure out what your true mission in life is.
Yeah.
And I tell people, you never give up searching for that till you find it. Because that's where real happiness in life is. So that's part of my coaching, to help people on their journey. Robert Frost wrote the book, The Road Less Traveled, 2 Roads into the Woods, and you get to choose your road. And those of us that are doing this, I chose the road less traveled. It's had challenges along the way, but challenges are what create growth. Challenges, without challenges, there is no personal growth.
Yeah.
And God would not give you challenges if he didn't think you could handle them. And so many people go through life, and upon the plains of hesitation sit the bones of countless millions, who upon the threshold of success sit down to wait, and in waiting, they died.
Yeah.
How many people have you had in your journey at this point? People are all around us. They're sitting and waiting on success to come to them. And the ship ships are made to go out to sea, not made to sit in the harbor. So you got to take your ship out to the sea and get on with it.
Yeah.
And having a good coach and somebody coaching you along the way and mentoring you and helping you keep the pieces in place, somebody just to talk to sometimes. It's so important in this journey.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I got one more question before we kind of wrap it up. So this is kind of a more philosophical question, but I like to ask, what is your definition of value? What is value?
Value?
Mm-hmm.
Value is, it's really what you bring to the table. I don't care what table you're sitting at, whether it's the dinner table or wherever it is.
Yeah.
But that value, and other people have a perception of your value. I did a talk recently, perspective and perception. Your perspective is how you view life. Your perception is how you interpret what you see. And our perceptions change in only a couple of ways: the people you meet, the books you read, and the things you physically experience. That is what governs your perception of things. So value is a perception.
Right.
That's really what value is. And it's the perception that I want people to have of me. What value does Tom Young bring to the table?
Lots, man. You blew my mind today. So.
I thank you so much for the opportunity to be here.
No
and you know, people can find me, Tom Young, on Facebook. There's a group called the Family Money Farm Group that I publish in every day, podcasts and videos that is just like what we're talking about here. And I have a theme that I follow, and about once a month I bring out a new book that I have read multiple times. And what is the benefit of the book to you going forward? You have to read books. You have to grow.
Yeah.
You have to grow you. Personal growth is not optional.
Right.
It will happen. Either you decide to grow you, to take you where you believe your why is, or searching for your why, or the world will grow you into what they want you to be. They will take your money away from you, and they will render you as an acceptable level of mediocrity person.
Yeah.
Simple. It's not optional. It's your choice. It's a choice.
All right, well, that was awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. So you're saying Facebook is the best place for everybody to reach you?
Facebook, you can reach me. My email address is firedupt, FIREDUPT, at Comcast.net. And the CFO-project. You get a copy of my book for free. CFO-project.com.
Nice.
And put in your name and email address. You get a link directly to you, so you get a full download of the book cover to cover. Or you can go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble and buy it. You can communicate with me here, and I'll send you an autographed copy this way.
Nice.
PayPal invoice and pay for it that way.
Yeah.
When you go to that second page on CFO-project.com, there's 4 other books there.
Cool.
Live Your Life Insurance by a gal named Kim Butler, who I wrote the foreword to that book. Life Insurance Will Pay When I Die. Jumpstart Your Financial Future. That's an ebook that I'm the author of. Yeah. And then there's a 4th book called The Infinite Banking Concept by R. Nelson Nash that talks about this, becoming your own banker. And what's on there is part 1 of the book, which talks about the concept. And then there is a 1-hour video on there called The Secret to Wealth Creation. Perfect. It will change your entire perspective on life insurance. When I talked about bank-owned life insurance, it goes through that. It talks about the debt clock. It talks about how to multiply your retirement income with no out-of-pocket cost and no risk. Yeah. And then it talks about how to get out of debt. 9 years or less, totally out of debt, including your mortgage, without spending $1 more than you're already spending. So that's what's on that video. That video is worth $10,000.
Yeah, man. I'm going to encourage everybody to go there. So
absolutely.
I think that's all the time we have today, though. Thank you so much, Tom, for being here, and I just want to thank everybody listening.
Hey, God bless. I start all of my presentations. Let's throw out. We want to send out prayers for everybody affected by COVID in the world.
Absolutely.
We want to pray for those who have lost loved ones and couldn't even pay last respects. They couldn't go to the funeral home. Their loved ones ended up in a refrigerator box. and that the Lord would open his arms and take into heaven all those who have been lost.
Amen.
We always have to keep that in mind. Robert, thank you so much for the opportunity to come onto your show.
Yeah, thank you.
Present this today.
All right, talk to you guys later. Okay, bye.
I'll be in touch, man. God bless.
Yeah.